We got what will become the Big Show out here cutting a promo. At this point, he's still the Giant. It's written here in the newsletter at the time. It looks like he woke up 4 minutes earlier. When did you know that Paul White was leaving or interested in leaving? Did you know by this point? I mean, we know by, February, he's going to be in WWE, I guess, around Valentine's Day. I say that because that's just like 5 weeks away, but he's still on TV here. And I think a lot of people were probably surprised you were using him.
He was honest with me. He came to me right away and told me what he was thinking and what he was going to do. And he told me right away when he had an offer. There was no gamesmanship on Paul's part, so there was no reason for me to do anything other than what I needed to do with Paul to keep the show moving forward. I didn't punish people. We joked about that at the beginning of the show. Wrestling fans just love to sit back and conjure up all these, all this drama and, well, maybe this is happening because this guy feels really this way about that. This is so much bullshit. And like I said, with Paul, it just, he came to me right away, explained the situation, told me what he was hoping for. I told him I couldn't give it to him. He told me he was going to go to the WWE. I knew he was going to speak with him. And when he came back, he told me what Vince offered. I don't know. I like doing business like that. So I wasn't in any hurry to do anything differently than Paul that I would have done. Obviously I wasn't building him up and putting belts on him and things, but I was going to punish him or take him off TV.
He's doing business the right way, and that's the last time Mean Gene's ever going to hold the mic for him, I believe, because this is his last show with WCW. He just got his last promo with Mean Gene, and here in a little bit, he's going to wrestle Kevin Nash in Knoxville. You're going to start referring to him as you're going to start referring to Kevin Nash as the NWO corporate giant. Of course, we know the Giant is about to become the Big Show. He debuted on a pay-per-view, ironically enough, also in Tennessee. I find that interesting that I think he's from South Carolina, and his last WCW appearance is here in Knoxville, and his first appearance for the WWF is on the other side of the state in Memphis at St. Valentine's Day Massacre. That was a cage match between Vince McMahon, or Mr. McMahon rather, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, when all of a sudden, here comes the Big Show. What a debut to be in the middle of that feud. The two hottest acts the WWF has, their biggest heel, Mr. McMahon, and their biggest baby face, Stone Cold Steve Austin. When you saw that they debuted him in such a big fashion, were you surprised?
I don't think surprised, probably more concerned than surprised. I mean, WWE had been turning things around quite a bit. So I was, probably more back on my heels than surprised.
Ian McCook says, much love from Northern Ireland, guys. What do you think of the direction of Ricochet and AEW looking like a believable heel? Of course, I think the idea was we're going to debut him as a babyface. Fans started to turn against it. Maybe they didn't like the way he was being booked. And they started throwing toilet paper with him at the end of the year in those New York shows at Hammerstein. He threw it back and leaned into it. And now it feels like he's become an organic heel. I kind of dig it, rather than it being the baby face that people were not digging. Just lean into what the fans are doing. The fans will tell you. What say you, Eric?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of what we talked about earlier with Hobbs and Moxley. If it's not working, go in another direction as quickly as possible. And, credit where credit is due. Whoever deserves it, whether it was Tony or Ricochet, but leaning into it, embracing it, and make it work for you is a classic. You're going to turn, chicken shit into chicken salad. It's good for them.
Nick says, if he could go back, would he take more control of all the bookings instead of leaving it up to others like Sullivan and Nash, to name a few? That's an interesting question. Do you ever think about, with the benefit of hindsight, that you would have been a little more involved with creative, or no?
Not at that time. I mean, I was learning on the job and I had certain talents. There were certain things, not a lot of people argue with that, but if you look at the body of work that I was directly responsible for, from the creation of Nitro and the kind of core values of what Nitro was and how it was different than the WWE when we went head to head. I have good instincts. I have good creative instincts, but there was also a lot about psychology. There was a lot about the technical side of wrestling that I wasn't good at and didn't have the experience in. So my judgment wasn't as good as it needed to be, or at least I needed to be surrounded by people with other perspectives so I could kind of check myself, or other people could check me when necessary. I wouldn't have been able to step into a more pronounced role than I did at that time. Do I wish I would have had the knowledge, experience, and perspective then that I do now? And would that have been different? That'd have been a lot different. But that's 2020 hindsight and, 20 years of experience.
We're seeing Booker T wrestle Lenny Lane here. I want to point out that Booker T enjoyed a really fun 1998. He became more of a singles wrestler that year. But 1999 is where he's going to start to get some title shots. Or I guess he got some title shots in late 99 or 98 rather. But here in 99, he's going to become TV champ in just a couple of months, beating Scott Steiner. And we know, he's eventually going to become the U.S. champion and the world champion. And it's a big opportunity for Booker T in 1999. Who were his biggest advocates behind the scenes?
I don't know that there was anybody that I would say was the biggest. I would say he had across the board support. There was nobody that wasn't a big supporter of Booker T. He had everybody's respect. I couldn't put anybody at the top of the list, though. That would suggest that there were people who weren't as excited about Booker T. That wasn't the case. It was pretty much across the board.
Whenever you have a proven tag team, the Harlem Heat are the most decorated tag team in WCW history. Booker T won more titles in WCW than anybody else. And a lot of that was because of the success as tag champs. So in 99, we're going to see, Booker T become the television champ, and he's also going to become the tag champ 3 more times. By the year 2000 rolls around, we're going to see him become the world champ. Is there a best practice or what have you used in your experience when you have these tag teams that are successful, but now it's time to do something else? Because you had to do this with not just Harlem Heat, but with the Steiners as well. And I know you had seen, young, great tag teams like the Rockers, and at different times you had seen the Freebirds and the Rock and Rolls and even the Midnight Express. We saw Bobby Eaton in singles action. So you had seen it a lot, but the 2 biggest, most perhaps WCW tag teams of all time were Scott Steiner and his brother Rick Steiner, along with another pair of brothers, the Harlem Heat, and you had to break them up. And I'm wondering, does that dynamic different because they're related? Are you more sensitive to that? What was your experience with breaking up those brother tag teams?
I treated them just like 2 totally individuals. Didn't really think about the brother aspect unless it was part, of the story. If it had something to do with them splitting up, for example, or maybe coming back together down the road. But other than that, they're 2 separate characters, and you want to get the most out of each one of them. They have different things to offer individually than they do as a team, and you have to think about them differently.